All right.
Priester Hamilton, yesterday and Friday, we had landmark decisions that were released by the United States Supreme Court on two very important subjects that have been at the forefront of the news, at the forefront of a lot of people's thoughts and prayers for a long time. Those issues have to do with women's rights, abortion, and school prayer, and the rights of individuals to pray. And I know that you are aware of those rulings. Mm-hmm. Today, those are in the news. We want to comment on those for the local Bibb County people in the next week's edition. We know that you'll probably be preparing remarks this week for your congregation on those subjects next Sunday. And we'd like to know what message you'd like to get out to people that might see this newspaper article that comes out this week.
Well, I think as we kind of sitting here talking, it is historic and it is a landmark. I like you, didn't think that I'd see this. You know, I didn't see it coming in the past. I didn't see it coming to fruition in the past, but I hated it as I learned about it growing up. And I never thought I'd see the day where we had a ruling that said, now this is illegal, you know, at least on a national, federal level, and put it back into states. And I'm glad we've kind of got a trigger law here in our state that goes into effect. You know, I think they're asking for it to come right now from the moment of conception. And I think on this side of the abortion argument there, like, God is the author and finisher of life. And I think the danger for me is our stance on the view of abortion indicates something bigger that's going on inside of us. We are determining what God has already set in place. And if God is the author and finisher of life, if I'm now able to come in and give a ruling and stance that says, no, I want to relabel this under women's health care or any other health care or my body, my choice, then you are ultimately saying that, no, you are the author and finisher of life. And so we are putting ourselves in God's position. And whenever we do that, we make a mess of everything. And so I think we have to see that what the courts did, and I'm not going to try to get into the thing about us being a Christian nation or not or anything like that, but there's something that goes against our very fiber and our being, and I think this is why you're seeing the reactions that we're seeing. We talked about the side that's all for abortion. You know, they're upset right now. Whereas we are on this side of it, we're upset for all these years and didn't know what's going on. And that's because God has distinctively wired us to know that He's there. Like God has put it in our DNA, as the Ecclesiastes tells us. You know, He put eternity on our hearts from the time that we've begun. We know that this life is not all there is. There's something else, and so with that, we have instilled in us that there's a reason for life, that there's purpose for life, that is not in ourselves, like it belongs to Him. And so there's a moral fiber there that He instilled into us that is within His character, within His nature, that tells us what right and wrong is, that tells us what sin and living holy is. And so I think what we're seeing is we've had the Roe versus Wade decision that allowed it. It was only going to be a matter of time before the moral fiber that was instilled in us rose up against it and said, hold on, this isn't right. And I think that's what the decision did last week. It was going back to our forefathers, going back to what they recognized, and what ultimately they got a lot of that from God's Word. God's Word recognized up front. And so I think there's a lot going into that is what we're seeing, God reshaping and hopefully bringing us back into a third or a fourth great awakening or another revival to hit the land. I hope this is the kind of the beginning of that, because now we can hopefully have the conversations. We get back to the heart of what the real issues are, not the effects or what we've seen. This isn't going to be a popular thing, and so your viewership may go up, and a lot of people may say, they may really hate this, what I'm about to say, but as a man who gets up and proclaims God's word, and has to rely on God's authority. The argument, my body, my choice, really kind of irks me, because I'm like, the abortion is not the choice. That's the consequence of a choice you made beforehand. And inside the confines of marriage, sex is wonderful and great, and the way God designed it. Outside that, and this is where, somebody's not going to not like me a lot, premarital sex is what leads to that, when God instituted that to be only in the confines of marriage. But that's a sin issue, that's an issue of lust, and an issue of other things. They're all rooted in sin. And so you have to tackle those issues before you can even begin to really understand what abortion's about and all this other stuff. And like I said, those are the side effect of what's going on. So with that, I think what I'd tell my church is, you are seeing our nation, as we've taken prayer out of school, you've seen where God has been removed from the forefront of it being on everybody's minds, to now wickedness and sin is all that's there. And what you're seeing is the nation has responded over the past 40, 50 years, as God has been taken out of been removed from schoolrooms, from classrooms, started there, and just it trickled up to where now you're seeing, because of the way God wired us, it's like, hold on, something's not right with the way, his, not to say his code written on us, but his character put on us all being image bearers of him and his character. Something's not right with that, and you're seeing the pendulum swing back. As you guys called yesterday and kind of prequeling me about what we talk about today, I was brought to one passage, or one book in the Bible that's my favorite book of all time, and it's the book of Judges. And the book of Judges, it starts off, and you see the judges come in because the nation has gone for 20 years or 40 years, and they've been in rebellion against God, so a wicked country would come and take them over. And then God would raise up a judge, and he would fight for them, and that judge would bring them back to God. And after every single one of those judges, it says, and through that judge, God freed the nation. And what I look at is, we've gone through kind of that 40-year time period, if you want to say that, from the 80s to here, and we've been kind of more captive into enslavement. And now, hopefully, what I tell my church and what I say is, hopefully, the future is looking better, and God is going to free our nation, not through Supreme Court judges, but through the judge of his Son, who's our judge. And so, as we now can begin turning back to him, I think more openly, having more prayer in school and things of that nature, hopefully we see, that like Judges, that repetition thing kicks off, but hopefully for our nation, we can say that at this point in time, over the next 40 years, especially and this is an issue critical for me, is I've got a little baby girl ready to be born any day now. And I was terrified before this. I was like, God, this is like the worst time in history to have a child, But Lord, you want this to happen, and maybe not. And so maybe there's a lot of hope going through there. And I'm more excited this week than I was last week about her coming into the world, and not going through some things that I went through and what you lived through, and kind of more excited about that. So.